September 11th, 2001, New York City. The sun is just beginning to rise over lower Manhattan. It's a quiet Tuesday morning. It's cloudless, calm, and ordinary. But not for Ron Lieberman. He's just returned to his apartment in Battery Park City, a short walk from the looming towers of the World Trade Center. As he steps inside, he notices something odd. Dust. A fine layer of it clings to the windows, the floor, the furniture. From his balcony, he sees the North Tower burning. Sirens and screaming. People are running. Chaos is erupting. But none of that is what truly terrifies him. What terrifies him is that his wife, Sneha Ann Philip, still isn't home. She never came back the night before. And now, the city in collapse. She's vanished. Was she caught in the chaos? Did she run toward danger to help? Or had something happened to her before the first plane ever hit the towers? This is the story of a doctor, a mystery, and a disappearance that defies explanation. I'm Drew, and you're listening to Legends May Live. Before everything changed, before the chaos of that Tuesday morning, Dr. Sneha Ann Philip was living a life that on the surface seemed full of promise. She was a 31-year-old second-year internal medicine resident at Cabrini Medical Center in Manhattan. She was born in India and raised in upstate New York. She was quickly achieving all her family had hoped for. Sneha was smart. She was driven and respected by her peers. She had attended Johns Hopkins and completed her medical degree in Chicago, where she met and fell in love with another medical student, Ron Lieberman. To friends and family, they were a power couple, two doctors chasing their dreams in the heart of the city. But behind the scenes, as often is the case, things were far from perfect. Sneha was under pressure. Work was grueling. She was constantly putting in hours, trying to live up to these absurd expectations that she had for herself and that she felt like everyone else had for her too. She had recently faced disciplinary action at the hospital after filing a police report alleging sexual harassment from a colleague. It was a claim that investigators would later say lacked evidence. The hospital, in turn, accused Sneha of being unreliable. They said she was missing shifts and showing erratic behavior. It left a stain on her record and possibly her reputation. Nevertheless, she kept going. She kept showing up, kept trying. She was never one to just lie down and give up. On Monday, September 10th, 2001, Sneha had the day off, so with this rare opportunity to relax, she decided to catch up on some much-needed rest and sleep in late. After she got up, she hopped online and checked some emails, browsed for a little bit, and then chatted with her mother for a while. They talked about a little bit of everything, from family holiday travel to family in general and just life. It was a really nice morning, and for a bit, Sneha felt like she had a chance to catch her breath from the near constant work. Sneha mentioned to her mother that she was thinking of visiting the Windows on the World restaurant, a famous eatery at the top of the North Tower. But it was just an offhand remark. She didn't say she had reservations or that she had a plan to go. It was just kind of really, yeah, I've heard good things, I might check it out. So shortly after their conversation ended, both women went about their day. A little while later, Sneha left the apartment and walked to Century 21, a department store near the World Trade Center. She just kind of browsed around for a bit, trying on a few sets of clothes, and eventually she made her way to the counter with some lingerie, some shoes, and a few cosmetics. The cashier checked her out, and she casually strolled out of the store. Then later, just after midnight, Ron Lieberman got home to their shared apartment. He was exhausted after another long shift at the hospital, and he went to the bedroom to change and noticed that Sneha wasn't there. But that really wasn't unusual. She was known to occasionally stay out overnight, sometimes visiting her brother or friends, or even just staying at hotels in the city to unwind after a long shift or a night out. It wasn't something that raised red flags for him, so Ron assumed she'd be back in the morning and he just went to bed. But by sunrise, the world had changed. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower. Ron wakes up to the sound of sirens and a phone that won't stop ringing. He can see smoke rising from the World Trade Center. He's not fully understanding what's going on, but he knows it's not good. He tries calling Sneha, but there's no answer. He tries again and again and again, but still can't get a hold of her. At this point, panic is really starting to set in. Still, his head spinning, and he's still thinking at this point he needs to get to work and he needs to help. So he throws on his clothes, he rushes to the hospital to help with whatever has just happened. But sometime later, still worried, he rushes back to the apartment to check for Sneha. And as he walks in, he immediately sees that everything is covered in dust. There's this layer of fine, powdery ash that's drifted in through their windows, which had now been flung open by the shockwaves. But what has Ron most disturbed is what's not there. Sneha. And there is no sign that she's ever come home. In the coming hours, the city locks down. Bridges are closed, trains stop running, phones don't work, chaos reigns. There are thousands missing. Buildings are in ruins, people are dying. Some from the building collapse, others from trying to help. And amidst it all, one woman is just unaccounted for. Ron files a missing persons report, but it's lost in the chaos of triage, trauma, and the mass casualty list. No one can give him answers. Not yet. He's not the only one searching for a lost loved one. Not even close. Days pass, and finally flyers go up. Sneha's name appears in the early news report as a missing woman, a doctor who may have perished in the towers, a possible hero trying to save lives. But there's one problem. There is no evidence that she was ever there. No one remembers seeing her near the towers that morning. She's not on any of the footage. She's not on any official list. And no one, not even Ron, can say for certain what she did after she left that store on September 10th. So then you have to ask, did she run toward the towers to help? Or had something happened to her before they ever fell? In the weeks following 9/11, as bodies were recovered and the death toll grew, Ron Lieberman held on to a single, painful hope, that his wife had died a hero, a doctor, a first responder in spirit, if not by title. Maybe she saw the smoke, heard the impact, and rushed to help. That was the theory Ron clung to, and he wasn't alone. Sneha's family agreed. She was compassionate, brave, decisive. It would have been in her nature to run toward the chaos if she thought lives were on the line. And their apartment was only blocks away from ground zero. But then came the other theory, the one investigators quietly began to build. The NYPD started pulling threads, and what they found complicated the narrative. They uncovered disciplinary issues at Sneha's residency, stemming, they said, from absences and erratic behavior. They found records of alcohol use, strained relationships, and legal troubles. Just months before her disappearance, Sneha had been arrested after an altercation at a department store. She was accused of shoplifting and found that accusation highly offensive, and it ended with a strong exchange between Sneha and the store security. It's alleged that she had been drinking, but that's unconfirmed. She had spent the night in jail, but charges were quickly dropped. Still, investigators painted the picture of a woman under immense pressure, possibly spiraling. Then they discovered that she had sometimes visited gay and lesbian bars without her husband. Some claimed that she had a double life. Others said that she was just trying to find space, freedom, and clarity. But the insinuation was clear. Was Sneha running away from something, or toward something else entirely? There were no confirmed sightings of her on September 11th. Her credit card wasn't used again. No calls, emails, or any footprints of any sort. and the shopping bags she had with her were never recovered. The only clue, if it could be called that, came from a witness who claimed to see her with a woman that evening. But the woman was never identified and the account was never verified. The more time passed, the more the story drifted from the headlines and into the shadows. It's also important to note that in spite of the claim of the disciplinary action she faced at work, it was cited as being related to alcohol or erratic behavior, but her family firmly believes that it was retaliatory action for Sneha speaking out about workplace sexual harassment. So now we have two theories, one rooted in tragedy, the other in something messier, something harder to define. Was Sneha a victim of 9/11, or did something else happen entirely? In the years that followed the September 11th attacks, families of the missing grieved. They searched and they waited. Some received remains, others only a name on a wall. Ron Lieberman, Sneha's husband, received neither. There was no body, no belongings, and no final text or voicemail. But in 2004, he did receive something else, an official ruling that Sneha Ann Philip was not a victim of the 9/11 attacks. The decision issued by the city's medical examiner's office cited insufficient evidence. There was no proof, they said, that she was anywhere near the Twin Towers when they fell. There was no direct link between her disappearance and the events of that day. To her family, this felt like an erasure. A woman, possibly one of the first to respond, dismissed by technicality. Ron fought back. He hired lawyers, he filed appeals, he testified that Sneha was brave, selfless, exactly the kind of person who would have ran toward the burning building. He described her life, her love, and the suddenness with which everything vanished. It took 4 more years, but in 2008, the New York State Court of Appeals issued a decision. Sneha Ann Philip would be officially listed as one of the victims of the September 11th attacks. Her name was added to the death toll, her memory restored. But to this day, no remains of Sneha have ever been found. No personal effects, no confirmed eyewitnesses, only a timeline that ends just before one of America's most devastating days. And even now, her story sits at a strange intersection between disappearance and disaster, personal tragedy and national catastrophe. The court ruled that she died a hero. The evidence, depending on who you ask, still leaves room for doubt. But one truth remains. Sneha Ann Philip vanished in New York City on September 10th, 2001, and no one has seen her since. Sneha Ann Philip's story is unlike any other tied to 9/11. Not because she was a doctor, not because she lived so close to ground zero, but because the very nature of her disappearance forces us to question everything we think we know about certainty and closure. She wasn't found in the rubble. She wasn't seen running from the towers, and yet we believe she was there. That she might have rushed in when others ran out. That she gave her life trying to save others. But the truth? Was she another tragic victim of the attacks? Was she lost in the chaos? One of the thousands swallowed up by a moment too big, too fast, too violent to make sense of? Or did she disappear before it all began? Did her life unravel in the shadows, quietly, tragically, the night before history changed forever? To this day, there are no confirmed answers, only questions. If you've lost someone, if you've lived through tragedy, you know the feeling, the silence, the uncertainty, the not knowing. And maybe that's why Sneha's story haunts us, because she reminds us that in the middle of catastrophe, sometimes a single mystery can be just as loud as the explosion. I'm Drew. This is Legends May Live. Thanks for listening.